It is 9:07. Time to call this meeting to order. Andy Gonzalez, St. Therese, Carlsbad, Texas. Would you come forward, please, sir, and say our invocation for us? Good morning, sir.
Please bow your heads. Dear God, we ask your help with our affairs today. Bless this meeting with your divine intelligence and help us to make the best use of our own. We are of diverse opinion here. May everything we do begin with your inspiration and continue with your help. Guide us by your wisdom. Support us by your power. You desire justice for all. Enable us to update the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, we temper justice with love so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you. Yet we wish to mend our differences and reach agreement satisfactory to all. Please share a little of your wisdom with us to help us do right by all concerned. Thank you for your heavenly blessing. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. You have a blessed day.
Same to you, sir. And now, if Mr. Keith Manship would come forward. Keith is 4 years old, and he is the son of Nathan Manship in information technology, and Keith's going to help me with the pledge this morning. Are you ready to go, buddy? Okay, let's do this one first. Let me get you right here. Okay, you ready? Say aye. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's do the Texas. You say honor and we'll start. Back here. Say honor. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Great job.
Thank you, buddy. And there are no proclamations or recognitions this morning, so let's go to public comment. Yeah. Let me read the legalities on this, and then we'll go to public comment. The council takes public comments on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on the regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the council at this time. The council may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. On public hearing items, public input will be received on each item immediately following the council discussion and prior to any action on the item. Each member of the public shall make the remarks from the podium and begin by stating their name. Remarks by each citizen will be limited to 3 to 5 minutes unless waived by a council member for all speaking on that matter. No individual will be allowed to speak more than once on any one subject until every citizen wishing to comment has done so. So at this time, I'm going to open it up for public comment from the public. So if there is anyone from the public that wishes to address the council, either pro or con, we take both, this is your opportunity to come to the microphone, state your name, and we'll give you 3 to 5 minutes to state your position. So at this time. Good morning.
Morning. I hate to be the only one or the first one, but
Now, you're the first one.
Okay, I'm Rick Abbott with the Lake Nasworthy Homeowners Association. Due to the recent rains, we've had quite an influx of trees, trash, debris wash into the lake. It's kind of a quick trigger deal, so what we have set up is on June 28th, Saturday, from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, we're going to have 5 roll-off boxes at 5 different boat ramps on the lake. We're going to be giving out plastic sacks, and we're going to be asking Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, elderly, anybody that would like to come out and help us clean up our lake. We would also like the council to maybe consider waiving entrance fees to both Spring Creek and Middle Concho Park to people who would say they're going into the park to do the cleanup, because we're going to have roll-off boxes in both of those areas. And we're expecting people to go out in their boats, go out in their kayaks, walk the banks, walk the parks. We're going to have another box. We'll have a box at the beach for people to pick up. And we basically just want to do a one-day cleanup of the lake, and we'd like as much public help and input as we can get. So that's it.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
You'll provide training, I guess, won't you?
Pointing.
Hello, Robert.
My name's Robert Searles with the Republic Services. Just wanted to tag on to what Rick was saying. We're going to be furnishing those roll-off boxes free of charge for the HOA. So anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that we're going to be contributing those.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Boss, is there any way that we can waive without a meeting and without a, is there any way we can do this?
Waive?
Waiving fees for the.
Waive fees for that day? Since we do not have a council meeting between now and then, it's not on our agenda today?
Well, it isn't on the agenda, so that's problematic.
We'll take a look at it, Mayor.
Those are just fees, gate fees, so I think that.
Yeah.
That administratively within the department that manages that, so we'll look into it.
We'll look into it and make sure that we make it happen.
I would like to waive the fees for those people. It's gonna go out and pick up, so. Boss, would you look at that, please?
We'll make it happen.
Okay. Do I have further comment from the public? Anything that you want to address the council about? Kevin, I do have a question for you. And I guess this is public comment because someone called Charlotte and asked these questions, so.
At 6:10 a.m.
At 6:10 a.m. this morning. Should we call him back at 6:10 a.m. tomorrow morning with the answer? Anyhow, I do have two questions here, Kevin. One of them, the first question is, are we still blending hickory water? The next question is, how much chlorine is being added to San Angelo's tap water?
Okay. As far as the blending of hickory water, it's not going on right now. We did start blending May 1st, and we stopped about the middle of May. We probably will start that process again in the next few days or few weeks, I'm not sure. And the reason for that uncertainty is because we are working through some instrumentation and control type issues with the system. So as we try some different procedures to work out some bugs, basically we're trying to work out the bugs of the computer system is what we're working on. So as we work on that, we will begin to blend some and test out the changes that we've made. So there'll be some blending that'll be going on and off.
Very well. And I know we're putting free chlorine in our water right now to clean the pipes up. And I know that's going to last another couple of weeks, but can you tell us any more about this?
Okay. Yes, we are free chlorinating right now, and that's different from when we normally mix with the ammonia. And what that does is it puts the chlorine in a different chemical form. Unfortunately, it makes that different chemical form allows the chlorine to be smelled more easily. Like it says, it's free, and so it does disinfect a little bit more than the normal ammonia chlorine mixture. So people will notice the effects, and that will continue at least through the end of this month, and maybe a little bit longer, just depending on how the results come out.
I know we've done this for the last, 3 or 4 years, this time of year?
This will be the third year.
Third year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so we got another couple of weeks of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Anything else from the public? State your name, Holster. You got 3 to 5, buddy.
I'm not going to take too long. My name's Steve Holscher. I'm the face of the Arroyo project, basically. Wanted to come up and let everybody see who I am. I'm a real person, a farmer and rancher, and we take all that very serious. As far as the Arroyo project, I know it's necessary. It's needed for the city of San Angelo for the water uses. So as long as we all have good dialogue, I think we can all get together and make this thing work. We've done it in the past, and like I said, we just all need to get together and we need to talk and make it all work. So with that, I'm not going to hold y'all very long. I know y'all have a long meeting, and I have a tractor today with John Deere. I got to get on and go to work.
Thank you, buddy. Anyone else? This is your golden opportunity. If there are no more public comments, then I will go to the council. Is there anyone on the council that wishes to pull anything from the consent and add it to the regular? Or are there any announcements or statements, anything? Start with you, Elizabeth.
I just have a comment on the items that first, or I guess that are suggested for funding by the COSA DC on the water projects. I'm still not certain why the council discussed those before they went to the Development Corporation for funding for them to come back to the council. So I think procedurally we need to be a little bit more strategic in the future and send those projects to the Development Corporation if we're looking to them as the funder. And maybe using, again, the Water Advisory Board in a more new and improved capacity than we have in the past.
Understood.
Thank you.
Don?
Yes, I'd like to pull item 7, please.
Item 7 from the consent to the regular. Anything else, buddy?
That's it.
Charlotte?
4, 8, and she's pulling 9 and 10 for discussion, so 4 and 8.
Did you pull 9 and 10, Elizabeth, or are you just
For
making a
discussion.
statement?
No, I'm just
Okay.
making a statement.
Oh.
Okay, you want to pull what then, Charlotte? 4?
4 and 10,
4 and 10?
and I'm assuming hers was 8 and 9, because I have the same concerns. Why did the council discuss it if it was the very next day it was going to go to COSA DC for discussion and got their approval? Now it's back on consent agenda today when there was not a firm vote.
Are you happy with it? You want to pull it and talk about it?
No, I'm not happy with it.
Do you want to pull it?
No.
Okay. I'm pulling number 12. Johnny?
I'm not pulling anything, but I do have a quick comment. I wanted to say that I totally appreciate what Rick Abbott and company are doing out there at the lake. And I want to thank Shane Kelton for all the help he's provided me over the last couple of weeks after the storm. One thing I would hope that we would consider, I've gotten a lot of calls from the elderly that live by themselves and have no one to reach out to. And I would just hope that we would, accommodate them in some of their problems that they've encountered after the storm. So that's one thing I just wanted to throw out there. Let's think about those folks that have no one else.
Johnny, and we are, Councilman, we are assisting with that as well. So yes, we are doing that.
Mr. Rodney?
I don't have anything on the consent, but I would like to move number 22 to be first on the regular agenda.
Okay, 22 is first public hearing, consideration introducing an ordinance. This is on the sign regulation. I don't have a problem with moving it. Johnny, do you have a problem with it? Charlotte? Don?
No, sir.
Elizabeth?
Do we expect Mr. Self to be at the meeting later today?
He's
No.
traveling.
Okay. Then no, I don't have a problem.
If nobody has a problem, then we will pull number 21. We will deal with that just as soon as we deal with 4 and 7 and 10
That's
and
a-
12 on the consent.
Mary, you said 21, it should be 22. Number 22.
Yeah, it's 22.
I said 21?
Yes, sir. So just make sure we're.
Okay, we'll pull 22 and put them after the consent items. All right, that leaves us on consent, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 5, number 6, number 8, number 9, number 11, number 13, number 14, number 15, number 16, and number 17. That means that we are pulling number 4, number 7, number 10, and number 12. So is it, she said no. So would anyone like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda with the exception of 4, 7, 10, and 12?
I'll move that we accept the agenda.
Do we have a motion? Have a second?
Second.
Do we have a second? Any further council comment? Comment from the public? Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the 4 items, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Let us then go on to number 4. And who pulled this one? Charlotte? This is consideration of matters related to the lease of heavy-duty equipment, construction equipment, consideration of selecting U.S. Bancorp for RFP VMO 514 equipment leasing, authorizing city staff to negotiate a contract, authorize the city manager to execute contract, and related documents. Number B, consideration of awarding RFB VM 214 heavy-duty construction equipment to Yellow House Machinery Company, Warren Cat, Cisco Equipment, and authorizing city manager to execute related documents. Ms. Farmer.
What kind of money are we talking about? I mean, 100, 200, $500,000? I mean, how much money are we talking about giving him the authority to approve a contract on?
The entire purchase amount is going to be a little over, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's not purchase, it says to lease.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The lease amount, as noted here in the financial impact, will be approximately $130,000 a year annually out of the general fund, and then $60,000, a little over $60,000 out of the water fund, and $43,000 annually out of the sewer fund. That's for a term of 5 years.
Is this already in the budget?
Yes, ma'am. We do budget for our
Move
heavy
to
equipment.
approve as written.
Second.
Do we have a motion to approve, or do we have a second? Council comment? Public comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Number 7. Mr. Vardaman pulled this one. This is consideration of
Mayor,
adopting.
one moment, please.
Yes, sir.
We still have one item on the purchase, actually, item B, so that still needs to be addressed.
I read both of them together.
Read them together.
Okay, so
I read A
motion
and
was-
B.
Yes.
The motion
It was just for,
was
it was just
A
for,
and B.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
My
A and B,
apologies.
that'll take, that'll suffice?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, number 7 is consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing San Angelo Police Department to apply for an FY 214 Community-Oriented Policing Services Hiring Program grant funding from the United States Department of Justice for police officer entry-level salaries and benefits. Said grant program funding began to increase community policing capacity, crime prevention efforts to be funded over the next 3-year grant period with retention requirements of funded positions. Said applicant being submitted for salary and benefit for 8 officers for a total amount not to exceed $125,000 per officer, and authorizing city upon award and with further city council approval to accept said grant and provide a local match of 25% per officer, being the match amount of $55,515 per officer to be paid over a 3-year period, authorizing to execute any necessary related documents. Brother Vardaman.
Tim, I just had some questions. Are these new positions?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay. So basically, we're going to, on the 5th year, have $529,000. What about the equipment for these officers, if they're new?
Well, I imagine the equipment, we're going to have to try to figure out how to pay for that out of our budget, but most of it's already uniforms, and that's probably where we already have that in budget, and we'll try to just make do with what we got.
Okay, what about vehicles?
We don't see any increase in vehicles. We won't ask for an increase in vehicles.
Okay. So we're, as far as a plan goes, does the city have a staffing plan for increasing the officers, the numbers of police that we have, or
Does the council have a plan?
does the city have a plan?
No. When I came to y'all last August and asked for 19 people or 18 people, that was the plan. Right now, I'm asking for approval to apply for this grant for 8 bodies.
Okay. So the total expense of, over the 3-year period would be around $1 million? Did I figure that right?
Yeah, Jeff has all the numbers on it.
The city's portion of that will be about $441,000 over the life of the grant. The federal government provides, basically, for 8 officers over a 3-year period, will be right at $1 million. And then the city's portion of that is $444,120 approximately, because with salary adjustments and things like that. We tried to account for that as best we could, but until it's finally approved through the meet and confer contract, that's going to be kind of it's a good guess,
Okay.
basically. So that's how we calculated those. And then the 4th year, the city would
Pick
begin
up
paying for them.
The 529.
Right.
And I would add that we've applied for this grant before in the past and not received any officers. And it's up to 8 officers that we could get. We may get something, we may get 1 officer through this grant.
I guess my biggest problem is, I know that we need more officers probably, but I just, without a plan, just to come up and hit 8 officers, for $1 million over 3 years, it's lots of money. And,
Well,
and like I said, then you put equipment and.
Maybe I don't understand what you mean by plan. Again, I believe you were sitting on the council when I brought my presentation to you last summer in regards to our staffing needs and what our plan was then. That's the plan that we had. What the plan that we're using through this grant is we're focusing these 8 officers on domestic violence. Domestic violence is the 3rd year in a row has been the #1 call for service in our community. And as you've been very well aware, over the last year, the homicides that have occurred in our community and in the county have been domestic violence related. And we felt that there was a need, and that's what we applied for, the grant. And those officers will specialize in domestic violence cases.
Daniel?
Sure. I know I've met with the chief. We've been meeting on a weekly basis now. And as far as the numbers going up and the numbers for calls, they have been going up consistently. So we know that that's something that we're going to have to plan for in the future as well, as far as the staffing for police officers. What this grant allows us to do is address it over the next 3-year period, and continue to hopefully monitor and know that our revenues continue going up, as far as our sales tax revenues, property values, and so forth. We know that it's something that we're going to plan for. At this point, we have the assistance of a grant that will pay for a good portion of these 8 salaries. And it is my recommendation that we go ahead and apply for that, see if we do get it. But again, it's just planning and getting ready for what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's already started coming.
Yeah, it's already started.
And this is budgeted monies?
It's we have as far as the matching portion of it, that comes out to, what was that, Mike, 144,000? We have a portion of about 144,000 we'd have to address as far as the next 3 years and how we're going to do that, and that's part of the budgeting process as well. But again, we do know that at this point we are going to have that need for those officers in these coming years.
Move for approval.
Second.
Charlotte?
You're increasing your budget based on a grant. At the end of the 3-year period, if you were able to hire 8 additional officers and you don't get a future grants or whatever, you're going to dismiss those officers? Did I hear you say that they would be advised that they're being?
No, part of the grant is we have to keep those officers.
Okay.
So it's $529,000.
$529,000.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Can I clarify just 1 second?
I know what you're going to say.
The grant requires that we retain them for a period of 4 years. We have to retain them 1 year past the end of the grant period. After that, we could phase them out if the city decides, or if the growth is not there, or the tax dollars are not there to fund those officers. We could phase them out through attrition, which should be no issue. We usually lose 12 to 15 officers a year, so it shouldn't be an issue.
And you're saying that the cost of an officer's salary and Benny's is $125,000 a year per person?
That's what the grant provides.
Yes.
No. It's $55,000. The grant will pay up to $125,000.
You've had trouble now hiring and retaining officers at our, you say, the salary pay scale. You don't think you're going to anticipate any kind of problems in finding 8 additional people?
I can't tell you that.
Well, what happens if you don't? We'll have to pay the grant back, and
You just would not draw the money down.
You won't draw the money
down.
Okay.
You draw down per year.
Okay.
We do have a motion to approve. We do have a second. Further council consideration? Public comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Number 10, consideration of ratifying the City of San Angelo Development Corporation's approval of the Chamber of Commerce Professional Services Agreement for the 2013-2014 year and authorizing the president to execute the agreement. Roland Pena. Is anyone here from Costa D.C.? Charlotte?
Mayor, I'll do my best to try to answer
Okay, Mike.
any questions you have.
This was yours?
Well, yes. My question is this is the contract, the annual contract that we do with the chamber, is that correct?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
the dollar amount, you're wanting us to approve this in We haven't discussed or set budget or talked about any kind of cuts in budget that we had discussed last budget season, that we needed to seriously look at some double payments of works and duties that are being done, and I just wanted to go over the contract before we approved it. And we didn't have that opportunity.
Well, Mr. Pena's trying to catch all the contracts up.
Here's Roland.
He's trying to get.
You walked right into the lion's den, Roland.
But I love the smile.
What we're dealing with, Roland, is number 10, the approval of the Chamber of Commerce Professional Services Agreement.
Yes, sir.
Charlotte's got some questions.
Just considerable questions on my part is to the budget. This contract was approved with a dollar amount in there. Didn't see any reductions for any redundancies or any cutbacks in that budget. It's the same old, same old.
Well, let me explain. That is the execution of the existing contract for this current year. So we're already, what,
Gotcha.
7 months.
Thank you.
But we did talk about performance measures. There are some changes in the contract. One of the changes is that any unspent funds have to come back to the COSA DC, so that is a change. And the other change was that we would like the personnel to be at the BRC as often as needed, because we really have a need for another person and the resources. But other than that, we're gonna once approved, we're gonna start negotiating the new contract.
Is the contract, does it run from July to July?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year with them?
So it would be October 1.
Okay.
Right.
Move to approve as presented.
Do have a motion to approve as presented. Do have a second. Further consideration from council?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I thought the contract was more than $225,000 a year. Is that's it?
Prior, maybe not. I mean, I guess at one time it used to be higher than that, but
Okay.
I think the last few years it's been at 225.
Okay.
Anything else, John?
I just wanted to cut it.
Rodney, you all right?
I'm good.
Anybody else? Public comment on this? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Stay right where you are, buddy. I pull number 12, consideration of ratifying the City of San Angelo Development Corporation's approval of the funding of a portion of the cost of providing three-phase power to the front of the property in the industrial park sold to Case Toll Solution, providing for future extension of three-phase power to other parcels in the industrial park in an amount not to exceed $20,000. And my problem, sir, we've already incentivized Case Toll, which is a fracking company, which I'm not satisfied with anyway, but in a desert, I don't like fracking companies, but that's already been done. But we've already incentivized these people up to $100,000 because we reduced the price of the land from what it was worth. We knocked off $100,000. We've already incentivized Case Toll. Why are we further incentivizing?
My understanding is that we sold the property with the interpretation that the property had utility services, and it does not. No, there's no three-phase service there at all. There's only single phase for the street lighting. And so in our discussions with Case Toll, we compromised. We're paying for up to a certain amount for the primary service to the transformer and for the transformer to be installed, and then they will pay from that point to the secondary delivery to their warehouse or the facility.
So they never looked into this to see if, before they began to spend these millions of dollars out there, they never checked to see if they had the power to provide for the services they needed? Did we, as a development corporation, tell them that three-phase power was there?
My understanding is yes. I mean, this is before I was here, but that's my understanding.
I'd move to approve.
Second. I don't like it either, but I truly believe that it was represented that they had full utilities, and someone might not have known the difference between a three-phase.
I would think a company that's going to spend several $1 million would have verified that the electricity they needed was in place before they begin the work. I mean, to me, that is common sense, so.
I would think that an industrial park that had existed for 17 or 18 years might have the appropriate level of power out there, which it didn't, so.
Don, did you have anything, sir?
Yeah, I just, are we going to size this or do whatever? I noticed you said future expansion. I want to make sure that we look at this thing to where we can take it to other parcels as we continue to grow out there and not spend the $20,000 just on this one particular one so that it can branch off.
That is correct. That is the proper planning. Part of the cost will include a double conduit there in the event that we have repairs that need to be repaired. But it allows us also to continue service to the rest of the park for three-phase. Obviously, the entire park doesn't have any of the three-phase because we don't know what a client is going to be asking for. So we could lay the utilities, but we may have to remove it. So what we do is wait for the client to be there. But going back to your question, and obviously what you've pointed out is that Costa DC was unaware that we would have to pay for those additional infrastructure costs. We're going to make up for it in the future, so we're prepared. We're ready now.
Is everything else out there as far as sewer, water, those sort of things, they're all in place? This is kind of the only piece of the puzzle that's left?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Rodney?
For phase one.
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct. Actually, where they placed Queso was not part of that infrastructure that was provided. So they had to provide a tap. So they provided additional infrastructure to Queso, and so you'll see where we trenched the street if you go out there. And so we're going to do repairs to the street. So it was placed in a location where service wasn't available.
Fire hydrants and all that's good?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Further comment from council? Johnny?
Roland, do you have any idea, aside from our 20,000, what it's going to cost them on their part to tap into that? Any idea?
I do not.
More than 20?
No.
I don't. No, I don't believe so, but I don't have any idea. I can get back to you, though.
That's fine. I just thought you might know that. That's it.
Anyone else? I voted against them first time when we incentivized at $100,000, and I'm going to vote against this $20,000, but I'm just one vote. Public comment. Motion has been made that we accept this as presented. It has been seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 5-1 on that one. Thank you, Roland.
Okay.
May I comment on the 8 and 9, even though I didn't pull up?
Of course you may.
Mr. Pena, what I was referring to at our retreat and on item 8 and 9, what I was referring to is like ask Dad, and if he says no, go ask Mother, that I didn't like that. At last meeting, we discussed 8 and 9 that's on the consent agenda. And it was, I believe, a 3-3. We were just not settled on paying the fees that were involved. The very next day, it was on the Costa DC's agenda. And according to my appointee, they were not told that there was considerable conversation or controversy about these fees. They were just told it's already been to council. And they assumed that council had approved it. And that makes it look like, well, we went and asked the city council, they said no, so we're asking you. You said yes, now it's got to come back, and city council's got to approve what they said. And that's what I don't like, that the way it was handled in this case. You explained it. I understand their meetings the next day after hours, and that's a pretty quick turnaround. So maybe we need to look at when their meetings are with reference to ours so that this doesn't happen. Full information should be given to them.
That's correct. For the benefit of the rest of the council and the audience, those items were placed on Costa DC agenda, but I will take the blame. I should have done the research to determine what the deliberation had been on the council, and if one of those had not passed. I was unclear about that, and so I was asked to put the items on the agenda, and I did, and I just failed to cover that base. So I apologize, and it won't happen again.
Thank you.
Okay.
I hope the rest of your day is better than
Well, let me ask you, the RFQ, did it get did you have questions about the RFQ? Did that get pulled? It got pulled? I thought that was one of the items that got pulled, no?
What's that? Which item is that?
It's the RFQ. Man, I keep just adding to the discussion, don't I? The RFQ on the industrial park. Okay,
We've improved
good.
the entire consent agenda.
Okay, good.
You're a glutton for punishment, let me tell you.
Hey, Roland.
But if you want to stand up there, you know.
Roland,
Not that I enjoy it.
Roland, just walk away.
Walk away, Roland. Okay, we have pulled number 22 to the front. This is the first public hearing and consideration of introducing an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Exhibit A, zoning ordinance of the Code of Ordinance of the City of San Angelo. This is an ordinance of the City of San Angelo, Texas, amending Chapter 12 entitled Planning and Development, Article 12-600 entitled Sign Regulations, more particularly by an amending Section 12-604 entitled On-Site Regulations in order to allow freestanding signs to be placed at an angle on lots at the intersection of two streets, amending subsection 12-606 entitled Portable Signs in order to extend the period a portable sign may be placed from 90 days to 180 days, and to require an identifying label indicating the expiration date of the portable sign, providing for a penalty for the violation of this ordinance, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And if I'm reading this correct, last agenda item, there were two items, the angle sign and the 180, and we've combined those in this one?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
And I know last time we had a 3-3 vote because Silvas wasn't here, so since Marty's not here today, we may have another 3-3 vote. We may be pushing this to the next one.
And I'll come back. Good morning,
us a
Mayor
brief.
and Council. Sure. I can't seem to find the slide from last time, but basically all I had was the wording of the ordinance, just had the one slide. This is actually two separate sign ordinance recommendations or changes, requests, and they were, I don't know what happened last time, they were listed, one was listed twice, but basically it's in two parts. The first part is about portable signs, the second part is about freestanding signs in the corner. So we'll address the portable signs first. If you'll recall, right now, portable signs are allowed to be permitted for 90 days out of a calendar year. And Councilman Fleming directed staff to bring this before you and to propose that we change that 90 days to 180 days. And basically, that's the first part of the ordinance.
And the other portion was allowing an angle sign.
Yes, do you want me to go ahead and?
Let's just get them all together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get them all together in one since it's presented as one.
The other portion, the sign ordinance currently requires that properties that are on the corner, you're allowed to have a sign at both one sign at both frontages that are perpendicular to the flow of traffic. Planning Commission has heard multiple cases over the past year or two where the property owner requests a single sign at an angle at the corner rather than the two perpendicular signs. Planning staff has consistently recommended approval. One of the requirements of the sign ordinance is to reduce visual clutter. So the theory is one sign is less visual clutter than two signs. So Planning Commission has approved each of those. And after the last one, they recommended that planning staff just go ahead and bring this to council and change the ordinance to just allow these corner signs rather than requiring two signs perpendicular at each side.
Is this an either or?
No.
They could still put two signs
Yes, sir.
perpendicular if they wanted,
They-
or they
they-
could go with one angle sign?
Yes, sir. They would still be allowed signs in each frontage.
Okay.
The question was the length of time.
We're
It's the
going,
same.
yeah, from 90 days to 180 days.
180.
One of them is to allow angle signs, and the next portion of it is to go from 90 days to 180 days
Move to
on that
deny.
portable. We do have a motion to deny.
Second,
Do have a second to deny.
second,
Still have a second to deny.
second.
If I could clarify, is this for the entire motion or just for the portable signs?
No,
It's
you've got
all one.
everything
It's all
together.
together.
It's all in
Okay.
one.
It's on one
motion.
item.
Yeah, it's all right. Okay, we do have a motion to deny. We do have a second. Do I have further council consideration? Do I have public comment? Yes, ma'am. State your name. You have 3 to 5, please.
Good morning. I'm Kristen Oliver, and my husband and I have a rent-a-sign. This is what we do, is our temporary portable signs. I just kind of wanted to put a face to this permit. 80% of our customers are small business, churches, and nonprofit organizations. And I don't know how in touch y'all are with the small businesses, but small businesses have not seen a lot of the influx of money coming in, excuse me, from the oil boom that a lot of these larger companies are seeing. It's the small businesses that are affected by this. And I actually had quite a few of our customers that were supposed to come speak today, but I think the fear of public speaking kept them at bay. But anyway, I just wanted you to know that who uses these signs, and it's the small business people. We charge, it's $175 for a month, $25 of that goes to the city for the permit fee. Our business alone pays anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per month to the city. That's very cheap advertising. I don't know if you're familiar with what it costs to run an ad in the newspaper or on TV, but you can get an ad about this big for $175 in the newspaper to run one time with a limited audience. I just want you to be aware that who this is affecting. Like I said, 80% of our customers are the small business, churches, and nonprofits. I'm totally aware of the fact I'm not for an all-out sign ordinance. I do believe the power in the temporary signs is in that it is temporary. We get tunnel vision, we get used to what's surrounding us, and that's what makes it so powerful, because it's something different. So, like I said, we would really appreciate your consideration, because it's really what you're affecting as a small business. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. And I am running ads right now in the Standard Times for a church meeting we're having, and it's costing me better than $200 a day for a little bitty ad. So these signs are very, very effective, and they're inexpensive enough that people can afford them. Anyone else from the public care to comment? The motion has been made to deny, and I'm going to ask for a raising of hands here so we can keep up with it. All in favor of denying, please raise your hand. We have 2 to deny. All in favor of allowing, please raise your hand. We have 4.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Yes.
we need, okay, it has been disapproved to deny by a 4-2 vote, so I'll ask for another motion.
I'll move to approve this item as it is presented, and moving from the, 90 days to 180 days?
And allowing the angle sign as an either or.
I'll second that.
All of the above.
Do we have a motion, a second?
You gonna take comment?
We'll take comment.
Approve, yes, approve as presented as is written.
Elizabeth, do you want to comment?
For anyone who wants to speak on behalf of small business, I applaud you. I also think there is definitely a balance that needs to be weighed in this community. As you mentioned, too much signage becomes cluttered and becomes ineffective. Right now, the portable sign ordinance allows for a sign to be used approximately once every 4 days. I can't imagine a church or a business having a sale more frequently than that. So personally, I'm going to continue to vote against this, because I think that 90 days out of a 365-day calendar year is adequate for special events and special advertising of that type. I think going to 180 days completely diminishes the effectiveness and, again, clutters the community unnecessarily. I think that my constituents are very concerned about what's going to happen in our community with kind of the economic upswing that we're experiencing, and they want to see us protect the community and its character. And if we talk about the communities that we don't want to be, I think they are communities that have absolutely no sign control, which is the way I think this is going. So I will continue to hold my support for it.
Any further comment, Don?
You know, I vote on this with great trepidation.
Spell that.
I can't. The thing about it is, I don't want to have clutter, but by the same token, I don't want to handicap our small businesses either. What I'd like to see is a report in 3 months on this thing to see if it is causing clutter, if we're getting complaints on it, if we're actually helping the small businesses to make sure that we're doing what we're intending to do with this ordinance.
I personally feel that businesses ought to be the one that make the decision if their advertising is effective or ineffective, and they have the opportunity to say, pull the sign if it becomes ineffective. That's not a bureaucratic decision. That is a decision for the businesses to make. Anyone else care to comment? John?
May I ask you a quick question? When I go and rent a sign from you, I too had reservations about the 180 days. That's a long time.
Did you have trepidation?
Well, I couldn't even say the word. but am I able to change up the message on the sign in those 180 days, or?
Oh, yes, sir.
It's just not that one message for that?
Correct. You could rent the sign for one day, but you still have to pay a $25 permit fee. The permit fee is good. It's a one-time thing that it's good for 30 days, whether you use it for one day or up to 30. So to address the part about the clutter, I love San Angelo. This is my home. I liked it to look as nice as well. But I think a lot of the problem, it's the signs that are not permitted. They're the banners stuck on T-posts, which are not considered a temporary sign. There's a lot of things out there. It's the signs that are, the plastic ones that are put up that are not, none of those are permitted. I don't think that's, the real issue is with because there is another gentleman that has a sign company as well. I don't think so much that it's the problem with us because we know the rules and the regulations and they keep us on tack with that. It's everything that's not permitted, that's just put out there, that's not being able to be enforced. And I realize there is some issues as far as enough labor to be able to enforce that. But I think a lot of that doesn't need to come back on the sign companies or reflect poorly on us because we are following the rules, we are doing the regulations that's been required of us. So, is there any other questions?
Thank you.
That's good.
Rodney?
No.
Anybody else? Public comment? Motion has been made that we allow going from 90 days to 180 on the portable signs, and also that we allow the option of placing an angle sign on a corner as opposed to perpendicular signs with traffic, and would allow them the option of going with either choice.
Mayor?
Yes,
Can
sir.
can I add what Don says about maybe 3 months from now, just kind of taking a look back and see how it's working?
Do you need that in the motion, or is this just something that we can do?
Do it.
Whatever you want to do.
I'd like it in the motion. I would appreciate it in the motion.
Let's go ahead and leave it in the motion.
But just, who's going to decide that, though? I mean, Dwayne said this perfectly. The business owners will decide whether it's working or not.
Why does it need to be bureaucratic? Why can't the business owners that are putting their money and their efforts and hiring employees and paying taxes and mortgages and insurances in this city, why can't they determine what their advertising is to be? And if it's ineffective, they're going to pull it. I mean, this is a common sense thing. They're not going to go for 180 days if they see after 90 it's not working. Why don't we leave this in the hands of the people that it actually affects instead of making it a bureaucratic decision?
Okay, I don't want it in my motion.
Okay, good. Motion has been made that we allow this. Further comment?
Well, sure. I think a review would be fine. I would be happy to do the review myself, even though I don't think that's what you want. But to somehow gauge that, I think is good. But I'd also like to see the public involved in the gauging rather than simply the business. This is a community that we're all in. We work here, we live here. And I care very much about the appearance of the community. That's my
Okay,
comment.
the motion has been made. Don has asked. Charlotte?
No, I was just going to say that in response to your objection, which I understand, I do, but if it affects other businesses, if other businesses feel like it's blocking their view or in some way like that, they have a right to voice that opinion, and that's what I have received is the clutter.
Well, there already are provisions in the ordinance that says they have to be out of the public right-of-way. They have to be on the business's property. We can't put it in front of. There's already provisions in that. I mean, we're no reason to beat this horse to death. It's already stated that there's certain requirements that have to be met. So I see that as a moot point, ma'am.
Okay.
If there's no further comment, I'm going to call for the motion. The motion is to approve. All in favor, hold your hand up. Got 4, opposed nay. Got a 4-2. It did pass.
Thank you.
Let's move on now to item number 18, which is discussion and possible action to approve or deny a third amendment to commercial lease agreement with Concho Valley RV Resort LLC, permitting recreational and agricultural use and rent rates under commercial lease. Cindy Priest,
Council.
your own.
Thank you. Good morning. Peggy Hodges with the Concho River RV Resort requests City Council consider authorizing a third amendment to the commercial lease agreement dated May 1st, 2007. The lease agreement provides for the commercial use of 25.088 acres of land and provides for a yearly lease consistent with the commercial use of the leased premises. A first amendment to the commercial lease agreement was entered into on July 1st, 2008. This amendment extends the term of the lease to June 30th, 2036. The lease amendment and the first amendment provides for a yearly lease fee, excuse me, consistent with the commercial use of the leased premises. The yearly lease fees are to be paid in quarterly installments. In 2010, the leasee advised city staff that commercial activity had not began on the leased premises and requested the annual lease fee be based on recreational agricultural use and not the commercial use. City Council approved the reduction in the yearly lease fees from the commercial rate to the recreational agricultural lease rate. Council provided that the agricultural rates would not extend past December 31st, 2013, or the commencement of commercial activities on the leased premises. Beginning January 1st, 2014, staff invoiced the lessee for the yearly rate detailed in the commercial lease. Ms. Hodges has now notified city staff that the leased premises continue to be used for recreational and agricultural uses and not the commercial activity. Ms. Hodges requests the city enter into a third amendment to the commercial lease agreement and provide for a yearly lease fee consistent with the current use of the leased premises, which is a recreational agricultural use and not the commercial use.
Charlotte?
How much total land with the City of San Angelo's land and their portion that they own, how many acres are we talking about here?
Ms. Farmer, they lease 25.088 acres. I'm not sure what their personal property consists of.
You know, they've had 7 years to get their business off the ground and have come back for renewals, and we're tying up some prime, real estate there that nothing is ever being done with. No recreation, no commercial, and no agriculture that takes place. And to me, this gets to be how long is a piece of string? It just goes on and on and on without any development going on.
Right, they were allowed to continue the commercial lease, but only with the rates of the agricultural, so they had reduced rates.
Okay, the recent rate change that the council made.
Yes, ma'am.
How does this affect their current lease versus what they're asking? What they're asking, does that not reduce what they currently pay annual?
Based on the commercial lease, rates, they would pay $10,880 a year. And based on the recreational agricultural yearly lease fee, it's $1,340.
Big difference. Elizabeth?
Cindy, do you know of any other interest in this piece of property, either before the lease was granted or currently?
Do you know, are you asking if there was a prior recreational?
Yes, has anybody ever expressed any other, I'm kind of following Ms. Farmer's train of thought. Would there be other interest in this? I remember when this was originally granted, as do I think several members up here. But I guess my question is this consistent with what other lessees are doing and paying for similar leased property?
For the recreational agricultural use, the abutting property owners are allowed to enter into the recreational agricultural lease, and that lease is for 3 years. Council did approve a 3-year term on the leases. This lease is scheduled to run till June 30th, 2033, and that's under the commercial lease. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and it's consistent with every other lease that the city has where it's being used for agricultural or for personal use rather than commercial,
Exactly.
correct?
Yes, ma'am. And that's under the recreational agricultural lease use.
And how is the property being used now?
I believe recreational agricultural. And we do have someone here representing Concho Valley RV Resort if you'd like to visit with them.
Is that all?
Let's hear from them.
If I understand this correctly, Cindy, they have asked that this be used for commercial for an RV park. And if it were used for RV park commercial, they would pay the commercial lease rate. But since they have not got the commercial property here, it is still being used as a recreational area and personal use. So they're asking, instead of charging them commercial, which they don't have, that we allow them to do agricultural until they get commercial. Is that basically the deal here?
Yes, sir, they're asking for the commercial rate to
be postponed until it actually is
until they
commercial.
commence commercial activities on the leased premises.
But right now, it's just recreational, and they're paying the same that everyone else pays for recreational. And then when it finally becomes commercial, then they will pay the commercial rate.
Yes, sir.
I wanted
Did I-
to add.
Yes, ma'am.
It is in a planned development district, and they did submit with their original lease, their proposal that they are going to develop as an RV park. So, the city is on notice that this is their plan. So I think it's an unusual situation to have a commercial lessee with this type of agricultural rate. It would be when indeed their plan has been set in stone.
Very well. Rodney?
Well, this is, I'm not understanding it. We're kind of giving them the best of both worlds on this deal. This is a commercial piece of property, right?
It's city-owned property which abuts the South Concho River.
But it can be used commercially.
It can't.
So we can't even lump it in with all the residential use properties that we're talking about that they're getting the rate on right now, because those properties do not even have the choice of going to commercial, correct?
They do not.
Okay.
They're
There's
not-
very few of these properties.
They're not operating under a commercial lease agreement, the other lessees.
Right.
This is the lease that's operating under a commercial lease.
There's only a couple of these that we have also, right,
Correct.
I believe. I'm not in favor of this. I think that they should be, it's not our fault that their plan is not moving forward at the pace that they would like it to be moving forward at. I would love to have, buy a piece of property and have it be a commercial piece of property and just pay a residential taxes on it. And just because I haven't changed it over to, put a sign out in front of it. So this doesn't make sense to me. They should either pay that or give up the lease and allow someone else to come in. And Liz, you said this, does anybody else know? But nobody else knows about this because they're tying it up. So no one even has a shot at going for this thing to actually do. And because this is a big enough piece of property, this could, even with our new restrictions, you could come in and do an RV park on this because it is big enough.
Yes.
Even with our new restrictions that we just put in place.
Johnny, do you have a comment? Charlotte?
Well, and my argument is taking it to just recreational agriculture is they've had signs, they've had banners up. This is now leasing RV spaces in parks, which makes it commercial. I just can't help but feel that this was triggered by our new rate and fees schedule that we put in. And like Rodney said, they're wanting the best of both worlds off of a prime piece of real estate that the city owns.
Council had approved a second amendment to that commercial lease agreement in 2008, which allowed for the commercial lease to have agricultural lease rates. Council approved that with the stipulation that the grazing lease rates not extend past December 31st, 2013. We commenced billing for the commercial rates in January of 2014.
I've moved to deny.
Elizabeth?
When this project came forward, it was the proponent that made all of the zoning changes, just for the history of it. And the interesting thing was most city staff argued against them getting the property for their use because of sewer line, a sewer main that's in the area, and no one saw it as prime real estate. I mean, that's kind of the irony in what's happened in our community since that date. So, personally, I'm interested in its value, and I think as I did then, I was sold on the idea that it would make a good location for an RV park. So my interest is in seeing that happen. And, I might personally be willing on giving them a 1-year extension to try to make the development happen. But if they're not successful, then I believe we need to do what we can to seek the commercial user. So I would be happy with a minor extension under the current lease agreement, but I think Charlotte already has a motion.
Whose district is this in?
It's mine.
It's yours? Yes, ma'am.
But That's what we did the last time, is we were willing to give them an extension, and this has been going on since 2007, and nothing is happening while that particular area is mushrooming and starting to grow.
Let's have public comment, and then I'm going to ask you to make a motion one way or the other, Rodney.
She's already made a motion.
I made a motion to deny.
Oh, you've already, okay, did anybody second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion has been made to deny, we do have a second. Did you have something, Daniel? No, sir. Public comment. Good morning. State your name, you've got 3 to 5 minutes.
My name is Carrie Meyer with Contra River RV Resort LLC. The property is currently being farmed. It is not a prime piece of real estate unless you own the acreage we own, because it is landlocked and inaccessible by other areas. And I think that we have the first right of refusal, because we're the adjacent property owner, to have a recreational agricultural lease if we didn't have this commercial lease. It is being farmed right now. There is no commercial development. There is a zoning request before the Planning Commission right now for something in the very front side in our neighboring properties. We are waiting to see how that kind of progresses and who our neighbor is going to be in the near future. But we're just asking, it is being farmed. It is not bringing commercial revenue. We would like to remain with the pricing compensate, along with the agricultural use. Any questions?
Well, one of the things that I have a problem with on this is just that I know a couple of your neighbors that are going to be coming in, and one of them is going to be a pretty big deal, and there's going to be there should be a lot more traffic in that area as far as commercial on this thing. So I think that I speak for several of the council members up here where you guys asked for this in 2007. You asked for it to be changed to the commercial, and that was 7 years ago. And now it's kind of like you just keep wanting to kick it down the road and not pay those high fees until you actually need it. Now, Charlotte asked this, don't y'all have a sign? I know you do, because I've seen the sign out at the road.
There is currently no signage.
But there was.
There was about 8 months ago, before we were tabled to extend. When we were tabled to extend, we did an amendment to the PD, and we were tabled for 6 months. In that time period, there were signs, and there currently are no signs.
Okay.
But yes, the project going on next door could drastically affect our plan.
Well, it's going to drastically affect your plan.
Right.
But that's why you should start paying now what everybody else is having to pay. You agreed to this deal.
We have, if, at a last resort, to let go of the commercial lease and go back to, I live on the property. The only use is our personal use and agricultural at this time. If we have to go back to that lease and let go of the commercial lease altogether, it doesn't, we don't have the income to justify the lease rate going up 10 times what it is now.
But 7 years ago, y'all knew y'all asked for that. You asked for that.
Correct. And we all have plans and think timelines work the way they do, and they don't.
I'm in real estate. When you have those deals, then you sell the land. You should sell it to someone that can come in there and do that's what most people do.
We have entertained those conversations on 3 different occasions.
Okay.
But we have not done that.
That's all I have.
Anyone else have a question for Carrie? Thank you, ma'am. I'm inclined to agree with Elizabeth for a 1-year temporary, but that's just my opinion. Don?
Well, I think this is a staff question. Since we've revised our whole plan as far as RV parks and those sort of things, that they submitted a plan, would it be grandfathered? Would they have to resubmit that plan as far as the setbacks and all the things that we looked at on mobile homes and RV parks?
Good question.
I think we grandfathered them in, didn't we, AJ?
Well, they didn't, but they weren't there. The ones that were.
The ones that were there.
Their plans.
The zoning was approved long before the amendments to the ordinances were changed regarding RVs. So they are bound by the ordinance that authorized the planned development district in perpetuity. It runs with the land.
Okay. So their plans wouldn't change as far as what they're.
And I think we dealt with that specifically, if I remember, but several months ago. Johnny?
Let me just, and I've been thinking about it, but the more, and I like your idea, Elizabeth, I would hate to, just shut these folks down or put a bind in their business if extending them just one more year and we're all in agreement that, hey, after the 1 year, if you don't, the changes aren't made, then I understand. But I know it's been 6, 7 years ago, but I'm totally in favor of at least giving them a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel just to see them move forward with it. So.
Rodney?
They're going to make a lot of money on this deal, a lot, because it has been approved. And I bet you if 3 park owners right now knew that property was already approved and it is sitting in the middle of the city right now, I bet they'll be knocking at your door this afternoon. So I think that the amount of money that's going to be made on that deal, it's going to be a lot of money, a lot. People don't understand how much money that deal could do. So we're talking about raising it $9,000 on them a year, which they asked for. That's what I keep coming back for, is they asked for this, and we've given them an extension. We gave them a 3-year extension, and now they're at 3.5 years because it ended on December of 13. I don't even understand why it's just now coming back to us. So I'm definitely not in favor, not even in favor of giving another year.
I'm seeing a 3-3 tie here is what I'm seeing.
I have another question. Kind of back with what Rodney's saying. Okay, this afternoon I decide I want to try to get this RV park off High Center. Can I go in and have them transfer all the work that they've done in the contract to me, or is it strictly with them and it would have to be completely renegotiated if I took it over?
The planned development district stays with the land.
Yeah, it's done.
Okay.
Well, is there any further public comment on this before I call for the vote?
What's the motion again?
I don't remember.
To deny.
The motion is to deny, and I think Charlotte made it, and I think Rodney seconded
He
it.
made it, I seconded it.
No, you made it.
Okay.
You made it.
I forgot.
Somebody made a motion and someone else seconded it, that we deny this and allow it to continue to pay commercial rates. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Let's have a show of hands on this one, because I believe it's going to be tied. All in favor of denying, please raise your hand. All in favor of allowing one, okay, all those that's not in favor of denying, please raise your hand. Okay, we do have a 4 vote that does not deny. I'll need another motion. Elizabeth?
I'll make a motion that we extend the ag lease with the current tenant for 1 year and 1 year only, not to be extended in that condition for any further time.
Second.
Question.
I have
a
comment.
Okay.
Clarification,
1 year
this
from
lease
the-
expired December 31st
Correct.
last year. Is it 1 year from there?
January 1. From
1
the-
year from January 1,
From the natural
2014?
termination. Mhm.
So in other words, the motion is good for 6 months.
Yes.
No, it'd have to be good for.
I think that's, I'll support you if you'll make it for 18 months, which would be a year plus the 6 months already.
I can't do that.
Okay.
Dwayne.
Don.
Yes. Who's first? Don, let me get you, then I'll get Rodney.
No, I was answering her question, then I seconded the motion.
You did second?
Yes.
So the motion's been made 1 year, which would actually be until January 2014.
That's right.
Okay.
From-
And Don did second it.
Yes.
No, you're saying 1 year from when their lease ended, so
Yes.
that's basically
The
6.5
lease is
months.
in force, if I might, until 2033, but the rates had expired.
Yeah.
So actually, for clarification, it would be the rates.
Thank you.
Sure.
And this would be from January 1, 2013 until December 31, 2014. So in effect, we're giving her 6 months.
Yes.
And that's the way you made it?
And back,
That's your-
yeah, going back to January 1, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's your motion, that's your second, Don.
Yes.
Rodney?
I'm good with that.
Johnny?
I'm fine.
Public comment. The motion has been made that we extend it for 1 year, going retroactively back to when the lease expired in December 31 of 2013. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay. Let's see a raise of hands. All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. All opposed, please raise your hand. We did end up with a 3-3. Put it on the next agenda when Marty's here and we'll discuss it again. And I would like to call for a short break. It's 10:16. is 10:40. And if everybody up here is ready to go, we will get this meeting started. We are now at number 19 on our public hearing and comment of the regular agenda. Discussion and consideration of authorizing staff to begin negotiations with Entenora Architects of Austin, Texas for a contract and scope of services for FC 113 Fort Concho Visitor Center project at Barracks 1 and 2. Brother Blue, thought you were on, sir.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. A little bit of history real quick to let you know where we are and how we got here. This project dates back to the sales tax election of 2010. We had to wait our turn in line for funding, and that's fine. We started the staff board retreat last year to bring together what we were looking for in our enhanced visitor center at Barracks 1 and 2, where our visitor center has been since July of 1995. Unfortunately, we've outgrown it. It doesn't serve our needs. It does not allow for exhibit space. The gift shop is too small. The administration space is crowded. And so the staff and the board had a retreat last year, pulled together what we were looking for. This was incorporated into an RFQ sent out in November of last year. And we were astounded and pleased that we received 18 packages. 11 from Texas, 7 from across other states: Ohio, Colorado, Illinois, Connecticut, Michigan, New Mexico, and New York. We were somewhat overwhelmed. We had a review committee of 7 that consisted of 3 staff members, 2 members of my board and foundation, and 2 other city officials, Mr. Wise and Mr. White. We slogged through them, found out that we had a top 5, had a playoff. We had on-site interviews and briefings, recalculated the scores, and came up with a winner. We have vetted this very thoroughly. We have gone through this end to end. We believe that this firm is the one for us. They have extensive experience in other sites, particularly other forts, including 2 that are my favorites, well, second favorites other than my current fort, Fort Larned in Kansas and Fort Scott also in Kansas. They've also done work at Fort Mackinac up in Michigan. They have deep and extensive experience in historic sites, and their entire team is well qualified. All this is today that we seek is permission to start a dance, so to speak, to negotiate a contract for scope of services. And under such a system, I'm told there is no set amount in front, no money amount. Nothing's on the table, everything's on the table, and we would be coming back to you, hopefully in not too many months, to approve a contract. Ultimate goal here is for them to design basically a space allocation. They're not going to create what exactly we're going to do, but they're going to take the spaces that we have and, using the state-of-the-art knowledge, try to figure out how and best to fit all of our wish list into the 1 or 2 barracks that we have available, and then give us an idea on an expected budget. All of this will be very helpful to us down the road in raising money, writing grants, getting donors. Foundations like to see that you put your thought process up front. And I stand ready if you have any questions.
Questions, Council?
I move to approve this item.
Second.
That's awful easy, Bob. Any further comments from council on this?
Well, and the reason I say that, let me just add that, having seen what even little old Fort Chadbourne did, I think, you know, that
I would
totally
commend to you their work, and we can do the same, if not better.
Yes, sir.
Well, I did make one of the meetings, and I was impressed. I don't know if this is a group that I was there, but they were very impressive even in their presentation. So
all the presentations were good. This was a very difficult decision, but that's good because any one of the top 5 could do it. And as you know, under the system, if we can't come to an agreement with the top one, we work our way down. But we're pretty sure we will.
You burn no bridges?
Never.
Public comment on this? If not, I do have a motion to approve as presented. I do have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Drop a 6-0 on that one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Let's move on now to number 20, which is the second public hearing, consideration of adopting an ordinance regarding nuisance light on residential properties. An ordinance of the City of San Angelo, Texas, amending Chapter 8, all fences and new nuisances, trying to say nuances, nuisances of the City of San Angelo Code of Ordinances to add a new Article 8, 1200 entitled Outdoor Lighting in order to create standards for outdoor lighting to minimize light pollution, glare, and light trespass caused by inappropriate or misaligned light fixtures while improving nighttime public safety, utility, and security, providing for severability, providing for an effective date of the ordinance. And before you get started, Brother Flores, I'd like to say that I did read the provisions that you put in the ordinance. It's everything I asked for last time, and I am very satisfied with the ordinance as written. So, it's yours.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, City staff. I guess we could call it a nuance, light ordinance that we're presenting this morning. Basically, this is round 3, and we did take into consideration all of Council's guidance and direction to come up with our final draft, hopefully. And if not, we can come back. So basically, we did put in the 45 days prior to a holiday and no more than 14 days after the holiday. I think that was one area of concern. The luminaries used for special events such as festivals, fairs, holiday celebrations, concerts, sporting events that are either sponsored by the City of San Angelo or have received authorization, those are going to be covered through this particular ordinance as well, and I think that was a concern last time for Mayor Morrison. And, sorry, Anthony. And then last, we did finally come up with the actual light trespass, and we tried to keep it very simple.
Thank you.
Mr. Vardaman. And basically, we came up with, and I might add, prior to finalizing this portion of the ordinance, the phones did start ringing a little bit. So we took an opportunity to meet with people after hours. We did several measurements throughout the city. The mosquitoes were horrid, but we fought through them. And we came up with a final draft that we think is not only usual and customary within this industry as far as other cities are concerned, but one that would allow still some type of lighting on the person's property for security's sake, but not necessarily offend the abutting property. With that being said, we're basically, we ordered a light meter. This is not calibrated or certified yet. Prior to this taking into effect, we will send it back to the lab for a certificate of authenticity as far as the calibration is concerned, similar to the SAPD's traffic guns or how to measure speed anyway. And we're basically going to stand at the 3-foot height on the offended property, basically use a meter stick, put your sensor at the 3-foot mark. If that light is intruding that abutting property at a 0.05 foot candle read, then there is a violation. Again, 0.05, it's kind of hard to demonstrate in an area like this. We had 1s all the way to 3s. Our final read and final practice property, I guess, had a 3, and it was amazingly horrid. It was you could officially read anything in your hands in this gentleman's backyard. So this is the ordinance. This is our second read, and if there's any questions, any concerns, I'll be more than happy to address those.
Council?
Yeah, right here.
Rodney?
I move that we accept the ordinance as presented this time.
Second.
And I agree. I think y'all have done a good job on this. I appreciate it, James.
Appreciate your hard work.
Do I have any further comment from council?
I just wondered, James, the mosquitoes you mentioned, that they carry flashlights with them or anything?
No, they were so big they didn't need to. I don't think they could have flown if they were any bigger, but it's just that time of year.
Comments from the public on this before we vote? Call for the vote. The motion has been made that we accept this as it is presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Drop a 6-0 on it.
Good job. Good job.
We're adopting the ordinance.
Yes.
To adopt the ordinance. Is that what you did? Is that what you said when you made the motion to approve? That's what he said. Was that the second, Don?
Yes, sir.
That was the second, and is also the approval. Let's move on. Second public hearing to allow citizen input on requested projects to be considered for funding with Grant Year 214 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnerships, HOME, grant funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Discussion and deliberation on funding allocations for said funds. Brother Salas, you are on.
Good morning. We are here this morning to have to get council direction on project funding for the federal CDBG and home grant funds. We did provide spreadsheets to council with staff's recommendations. We'd like to step through each line item and have council mark up the budget as you see fit. Recommendations are based on citizen input obtained through public meetings and on our 5-year strategic plan. And by the way, CDBG funds were cut by $38,000 this year, and home grants received a slight increase of $4,000, but they're scheduled to be cut by 30% next year, unfortunately. So we still have a downward spiral. Here are the CDBG recommendations. We have a total of $701,672 to allocate. We're recommending $148,335 for administration, $126,625 for rehab to delivery costs, $155,000 for rehab projects, $108,000 for emergency housing repairs, which are grants up to $5,000 addressing conditions that pose health and risk and safety risks. $15,000 for the Helping Hands program, and that program replaced Christmas in April, and it's dedicated to helping elderly homeowners. We're asking $150,713 that will go to pay the Section 108 loan for producers and Rio Vista parks. And lastly, we're recommending $38,000 for salary and benefits for one code officer dedicated to the 4 target areas. And for the home grant, we have less than $280,000 to allocate. We're recommending $27,996,000 for administration, $110,000 for down payment closing costs for first-time home buyers, $51,000 for attendant-based rental assistance for special needs clients, and $90,000 for our Community Housing Development Organization, or CHODO, which happens to be Galilee. And at this point, we'll take council's direction on the allocation of these grants, and then we'll develop the annual action plan, and then we'll come back to council with that. So, questions, please.
Start with you, Elizabeth.
I'm fine with it. I'd like to hear what the public has to say, but as presented, it looks good to me.
Don?
Bob, I know at one time we had a little money in there to help with demoing some of these dangerous properties to help the blight in some of our neighborhoods. I didn't see anything in here. Is there anything anymore? Where's that at?
We have funds from last year that are still eligible for that. So we'll maintain those funds from last year through this year. And I think we have about $8,000 available. And that just stays from year to year until it expires or we reallocate it.
Okay, do we need to allocate more funds to that particular? I know we're having problems with workers and those sort of things, so.
We're pretty good at maximizing those costs, so probably not. We don't expend those funds like, at one time we would go up to $10,000.
Right.
We're getting more like $2,000-3,000 a year now, so I think we have plenty for this next coming year.
Okay. That's all.
Charlotte?
I have no questions as usual. It's a very detailed report. All the answers are right there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Johnny? Rodney?
Can you flip back to the previous slide, please? The only question I have is why does the rehab program delivery cost so much as compared to the actual rehab projects, which is, they're real close to being the same?
Sure. Well, actually, you have to include the emergency repairs as well. Okay. So you put the emergency repairs and rehab delivery cost, and the rehab projects, and then you add that then you add the delivery cost. That's how the ratio comes out. It is a little high, and that's because we have to maximize our admin. Again, we're limited on how much we can allocate, so we always maximize the amount allowed by HUD. And understand that these folks do a lot of other things that aren't covered through these amounts. So we have to cover the cost of admin somehow, okay. And that's one way of doing it.
How many support staff do you have working?
I have 3. We've gone from 10 in 2005 to 3.
Okay, thank you.
I got 3 people doing
that's all
that.
I have.
So.
Someone want to move to approve?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Do have a motion to approve. I do have a second. Further comment, council? Public input? Anybody from the public want to weigh in on this? Everybody satisfied with it?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Can I just add a quick comment?
Yes, sir.
Bob, and maybe this question would touch this or maybe not, but I've had over the last couple of weeks folks, maybe had about 2 folks call me that where do they get help? They're renters, and they've pleaded to the homeowner to make repairs to their homes, much needed repairs, but I mean their calls go unanswered. Do you guys offer support or direction or where they could go, who they could reach out to?
Last year, we had a mediation center with ASU. We had that program, but what you can see with the cuts, some had to go away. That went away, unfortunately. What we recommend is to go through a small claims court. There's processes, and I understand those processes, so I can certainly provide them a general. Of course, I can't provide any legal direction, but I can provide them the concept and the process available to them.
Okay.
That I can do, so just have them call me.
I may send them your way. Okay, thank you.
That was funded in previous years through this program?
It was CDBG.
And how much was that?
It was $25,000. But with a $38,000 cut, we just couldn't sustain it.
Certainly.
And we ended up helping 16 renters to go through the process. And most of the time, it's just a call between us and the landlord, or them and the landlord, and the program and the landlord, and a lot of times that solved the problem.
Okay.
But we don't have that.
You'll be getting a couple of phone calls.
Sure. I'll be glad to walk them through the process.
Call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 6-0 on that one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we've already done number 22. Number 23, consideration of authorizing staff to negotiate an agreement in substantially attached form with Freeze and Nichols Incorporated for professional services per request for qualifications, RFQ ES 0214 professional services, stormwater engineering services in an amount not to exceed $100,000 per year, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between the city of San Angelo and Freeze and Nichols Incorporated, Carl Bednarz. And this is the one that we had a 3-3 tie on last meeting, and it's possible we'll have a 3-3 tie on this meeting.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
We do have a motion to approve, and this would be allowing the negotiations to go to Freeze and Nichols. It has been seconded. The opposition that we had last time is that there is a local company in San Angelo that also provides these same services. 3 of us wanted to stay with the local company. 3 of us wanted to go to Freeze and Nichols. So, yes, sir, Rodney?
I wouldn't say just stay with the local company. My objection was more so with the 100,000, and I don't understand. We keep bringing it back saying 100,000, and I've talked to a bunch of members of the public. Why are we hung on the 100,000?
Where that came from is that's equivalent to what the stormwater engineer's salary plus benefits would be. So really, if you're equivalent to not having a stormwater engineer, and this firm is doing those duties, that's where that number came from. It doesn't have to be 100,000. It can be less.
I mean, I'd be much happier with this because Daniel can approve anything under what?
50,000.
50. That was my main hang-up, is because the general perception of government is when you approve something, you say not to exceed or up to, that means you're getting the 2. It's going to be 100,000 no matter what. That's what the general public sees this as, and that's kind of how I see it. Also, I like keeping the lower number and then us come back and talk about it as time goes on. But that's just, I'm one of 7.
Okay.
Anyone else? Don?
I have a presentation. Do you mean just?
Not again.
We've already seen it.
You don't need
I
to.
mean, we know what it is, and it's
One thing
really.
We're trying to get out of
It's
it.
trying to beat a record up here.
It's pretty simple. I mean,
Okay.
it's straightforward, but.
Other things that I maybe didn't accentuate last time that I might if I could. Some projects that could be hampered or stalled a little bit would be our Avenue P project. That we need some help on that. We've got a task force development task force that's working right now, and several developers have asked us to develop some kind of stormwater checklist, and that'd be great to have. But that's another thing that's really kind of put on the back burner. Just different items like that we're looking for some help on that would really help our customer service and move this thing forward.
Well, why would this affect Avenue P? That's already been engineered, it's already been drawn, it's already been sent out for bid, and with the exception of a piece of property that we need, we'd already be through with this project, so why does it affect that?
Well, I came on board in September, and we were right there, kind of waiting for that piece of property, and didn't get it. After I reviewed the plans, there's some problems with the plans. I'm not sure we would be through with it if we had started since September. So there really needs to be some, I heard the term tweaking, and
I didn't say tweak. He says tweak.
I'm sorry, I brought it up and you asked about an engineering term. That's my term, I guess. It's not really an engineering term. But there's some changes that really need to be made to make that project work better. And it might could have worked the way it was, but I think there's something that could make it work better for the same cost, and that's what we're looking at.
Do you know that, Johnny?
No, I didn't, but I know that the biggest part of it is tied up in the legal process of it all, so.
Because we'd already turned that out for bid. It'd already been accepted, and if it hadn't have been for that one piece of property, we'd already be through with that one.
Yeah.
Mayor, also, the bid was only good through December, and so we are going to have to send it out to bid it again. So,
We did extend it one time, but now we have to,
yeah,
now we have to start over.
we're going to have to start over and send it out for bid again, so.
Are we going to have to re-engineer it?
Well, to some degree, because we had, even the original plans had some value engineering done to them to bring it from the original scope, bring it back down into the range of funding that we actually had available for the project. So, and that was done after the fact. So there are some design changes that we need to implement before we send it back out to bid again. The value engineering as it was done and we reshaped it, before we send it out to bid, it will have to be restamped again.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have some concerns over the existing design?
There's some,
I need you to be clear.
Yeah.
You're asking us to vote for something. I want to know why.
there's some improvements and some businesses along the route have just recently brought to my attention with the recent rains we had, some improvements that can be made there that's not in the plans.
Okay.
I mean, I guess we could change order it after we let it, but really you want to have it complete before you go to project. Some of the inlets that where it comes into the actual beginning of the storm drain system at closer to Bryant, I think could use some design, and some of that was in part of the value engineering that was brought forth by the contractor after it was let that needs to be improved on.
Okay.
Did we design this in-house?
Yes, sir.
What was the word you used, Don?
Trepidation.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling now, some trepidation. Don?
My qualms over this have been that it's a lot of money, and I've felt like if we could take some of those monies and put them toward hiring an engineer, it would be better spent. After talking with Shane, I can see that there's none out there to be had, so to speak. So I would make a motion that instead of having the 100,000, that we go to.
There's already a motion.
Already a motion on the table.
We have to wait till they.
To approve as presented.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Charlotte.
You might ask Charlotte to amend and go ahead and
Okay.
give your amendment.
Well, what I'd like to see is us not go to the 100,000 without having them come back to us. I think that would help the perception and make everybody feel all warm and fuzzy. So, except for maybe Charlotte, hopefully she'll change her.
Well, I believe that the reason the 100,000 is in there is to keep it from coming back to council so many times and cut out on that. Our city manager has authority to see to that it doesn't exceed the 100,000. I'd certainly rather see 50,000 on there with a goal to aim toward that. I don't believe the 50,000 is reasonable for engineering fees for a year. This is for 1 year.
Yes, ma'am.
If I'm pressured to change my motion, I would to the 50, but I have confidence that our city manager can monitor that and keep it between the 50 and 100 and to not exceed.
And if I may also, the goal really is to get someone hired in that position as well. And we, of course, and I do want to emphasize that as far as the work, we'll be billed for the work performed, so this is not a 100,000 paid out to this group right off the bat. So again, our goal is to get somebody hired in that position, and hopefully we'll just minimize the use of that,
Yes.
of this contract.
Exactly.
Mr. Mayor.
Patrick? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think the city manager said it. I mean, our goal is just to only pay for the services that we need. We obviously are actually in the process now of going out and soliciting for a new engineer. We had problems with our previous recruitment, and so we've gone back out again with some changes to the pay structure. So we anticipate having that internal asset at some point in the near future, and this is probably just going to augment what we need to in the interim. So we don't envision ever maxing out. Again, the goal is to ideally not have to come back for any reason, and you have entrusted staff, well, that will ensure that the quality of the work performed is to standard, and that we have no interest in spending funds obviously that are allocated for a full-time person on a consultant, and that's not our intent. So
thank you. Don, did you have something? Elizabeth, something else?
No, I just think that this is where, in a way, we're micromanaging. This is in lieu of a staff person that apparently we're not able to find at this moment. We have issues that need addressing. We have neighborhoods that are experiencing problems when it rains. So I would hope that Charlotte leaves her motion as is and my second, and we try for that vote, and then we see how it goes.
Johnny?
No, I just wanted to add, I found it interesting that, here we are about to vote for this or against this, and then I hear that the design of the Even Avenue P project has some bad stuff in it. So, Shane, and no pressure on you, but you've seen this design. It's been there a long time. Carl just saw it in September, so I wish somebody would have brought it to my attention that, hey, there are some flaws in the design, and not bring it up pressuring, putting pressure of any kind, either way. So I just found that kind of
and where it draws back to is I did, we reviewed the plans, and the plans went out as a whole set of plans, which it was a good set of plans. There needed to be some changes down on the far end, but that has been brought to our attention since the original letting of the original bid. I think where some of the issues maybe came back into play with it is as we were value engineering back, trying to bring those costs back down into the money that we had available. I think that's where some of our issues that we're seeing is that through the value engineering portion of it, trying to bring that back down to get it where it needed to be. I think that's where probably some of those issues arose. Not necessarily with the initial set of plans as they move forward. Of course, as dynamics, of storm flow change, people build a new house here, somebody builds something else upstream, dynamics change. And so as we're moving forward, we just want to ensure that we, catch all of these issues and try to bring the best product forward as we can. I don't think the original design work had serious flaws in it. I just think there's things that can be enhanced to make it better as we move forward, especially since we did do some value engineering after the fact to try to bring those costs down into our budget. So that I think that's where the issues are, and Carl may have something to add.
Johnny, I apologize. I don't think it was last week we met with Lisa on the property issue, and I brought up at that time, maybe I didn't explain myself fully, that there were some issues on the design, and maybe I wasn't clear enough, but there are some out there that we're out there. So.
My concern, we did this in-house. We accepted it, we approved it, we sent it out for bids. The bids were made, and had we not encountered the problem, we'd already be through with this project. And now we come up 3 years later and we find out that there's problems with it. If we had, what guarantees would we have had today had we gone to a Fort Worth company back then to design? What guarantees would we have today that they would not have designed it the same way, that there would not be problems there? And then to counter with that question, then what would we do? We would be going back to Fort Worth. We would be spending more money. There would be more time. That's why I think we need to keep things local, so that if there is a problem, then we've got local people here that can correct it. But if we go out of town and have something done, and they could make the same mistake we did in-house, then we have to go back out of town. We've got all this windshield time. It explodes. It gets more and more expensive. And that's a concern I've got here.
One thing, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ed.
One thing I want to help you out here is that a lot of these problems came up in the last 3 weeks because of the amount of rain that they got over there. And the property owner that he's talking about, I talked to him this morning about that that we're planning on buying from, those issues all came up, or not all, but a lot of them came up in the last big rains. It's been 3 years. Well, we haven't really ever had a rain like that, or it's been forever. And those problems came up after those super big rains. So in his defense and in their defense, that changes up things because we just weren't seeing the rains come through in such a short period of time, so much water going through the bottom of that thing.
Elizabeth?
You know, in the end, to me, this is a request for qualifications and the ability to negotiate with the group that staff has reviewed, interviewed, and believes is the most qualified. So unless we're going to be doing the review on every consultant, I think we look at the work that they do, either bless it or decide we need new staff if you think they're incompetent. But I think this is one that is taking so long just to help us help our citizens get some good engineering on the ground.
Public comment. Do I have any public comment? Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Motion has been made that we accept Freeze and Nichols and to move on. It has been seconded. I'm going to call for the vote. I'm going to ask for a show of hands here. All of those in favor of going with Freeze and Nichols, I want to see your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed. Motion carries. Freeze and Nichols has the job. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on now to number 24, discussion and possible action regarding the fiscal year 2014-2015 budget preparation. Morgan, you're on, ma'am.
Good morning.
Perspiration.
Thank you for your time this morning. I have a presentation to move through. As discussed in your cover memo, we're going to go over the major funds, go over the priorities that we've received from the recent council retreat, and talk about moving forward in the budget process. We went over the calendar last time, of course, but with the truth and taxation state laws and deadlines looming overhead, I wanted to make sure that we're being clear in where we are moving through the calendar. And so yesterday at 5 o'clock, we adjourned the staff budget review. We held that all last week, with the exception of Tuesday when staff was on hand for the council retreat. And then, of course, here we are today, June 17th, having budget discussion. What we achieved at the council budget retreat, the council retreat for priorities included water infrastructure and long-term water supply. This is an abbreviation of I believe, the major items that came out of that. And so the second item there is streets, renewed infrastructure, salaries, and adjustment to market, improved development process, and police station replacing with new or refurbishing. And so these are the items we're going to pick up now and carry on through the budget process to achieve those goals and those items the best we can in the time frame outlined. With that, I'm going to go over an overview of major funds. These are funds over $1 million, excluding internal service funds and debt service funds and capital funds. I do want to point out that probably we should be spending more time during this process would be with the general fund and with the water fund. And so for those, I'm going to save till last so we have, because I have some more detail on those. So I'll start with state office building fund. What I have is just a general summary of the revenue and expenses for each of these major funds. Really some minor issues with these funds, no major outstanding issues. For the most part, in each of these funds, the minor issues I'm referring to are employee raises and any changes to benefits, that those have not yet been included in these budgets. So you'll see each of them balances at this time. And so we would need to go back to the managers and directors once we decide further in the budget process what we're doing with employee raises and other items. So state office building fund rent is up slightly from last year. This is comparing original fiscal year 14 budget to proposed fiscal year 15 budget, just to be clear. State office building expenses are budgeted to balance at the $1,227,000, so that $8,000 increase you'll see in operations and maintenance of those buildings there. The next major fund that I wanted to go over briefly was the airport fund. You'll see a substantial decrease in their revenue, a decrease of $174,000. So their proposed revenue is $1,284,000 for fiscal year 15. That's primarily due to a vacant hangar, a major hangar that's vacant out there. Staff is working to full occupancy and working that process, but as it stands right now, we're going to propose that budget down and hope to rectify it through the process.
Morgan, go
Yes,
back
sir.
once. What is that 25,000? The other, what is that?
That's in concessions, gasoline concessions, and rental car.
Well, you got concessions up at the line below.
Oh, my apologies.
The other.
I can get you that detail. They have a few minor items. The other. I think the fuel flowage is in concessions, but I can get you that detail.
Okay,
My
that's fine.
apologies. In airport expenditure, you'll see that they've proposed to balance. They worked hard to do that, so that with that $174,000 revenue decrease, they've also proposed expenses to decrease. They were primarily able to do that by leaving 2 or 3 positions unfunded. They're not going to give up the jobs as yet, because they will be needed in the long term, but in the short term, they have some vacant positions that they're going to leave vacant and not budget in fiscal year 15 unless we make up that extra revenue and bring it back to you in a budget amendment. So their budget is proposed to balance. Just wanted to point out that one major change.
So let me ask you, the renovations going on out there, is that anywhere in this budget?
No, sir, this is just the operating budget for personnel and maintenance.
Because
That's in the capital budget, primarily grant funded.
that's on hold out there, is what I understand? Or is it moving, or?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't.
There's some work being done now, and we're discussing developing a change order for proposal to council as we speak.
Next is the stormwater operating fund. Revenue is proposed not to change. It's budgeted the same at $2,698,000. And so, of course, expenses are budgeted the same for a total of revenue neutral, $0 revenue over expenditures. No major issues there. The wastewater funds, our sewer fund, wastewater charges are proposed to decrease by $200,000 around, right at $192,000, and that's just what we're seeing in year-to-date trend, and so we're budgeting that appropriately. And in the expense, you'll see a corresponding decrease of $190,000. You'll see personnel decreased about $60,000. That's due to a turnover of some long-term employees. And operations is proposed to decrease $185,000. $100,000 of that is the wastewater pilot that we reduced $100,000 from fiscal year 14 original budget to the proposed budget. And that was the first year of that multi-year plan. And that just to keep you aware that that's something on our radar for future discussions to comply with that resolution, that goal that was set forth. And the remaining reduction there is primarily due to a reduction in debt service that does change somewhat from year to year. The next fund I have is the Civic Events Fund. Of course, the major revenue source here is hotel occupancy tax, which of course we're watching very closely. It is proposed to increase, as I think you're all aware. The proposed budget for hotel occupancy tax is $2.5 million for a total revenue proposed of $3,035,000. You'll notice in the expenses that $750,000 increase is captured. It's not budgeted yet in any one line item. It is set aside for council's discussion in the future, should it be used for one-time projects or contracts or any of those eligible uses. So just to be clear that revenue is proposed up, but we are not yet utilizing that or recommending that for any use in the budget at this time.
Excuse me, Mayor. Could you go back one slide?
Yes, sir.
See, this is where I have a problem, is the continued others, stormwater other, 300,000 plus, other here, 500,000. That doesn't tell me anything.
Well, the other is rental of the different facilities. So this is rental of the convention center, rental of the Coliseum, ticketed events, other income away from their major revenue source.
That's what I'd like to see there, but.
Mayor, if I could. Johnny, that's a good observation, a good question. Where is the detail? today, we're just trying to give you an overall picture of kind of the condition of some of these major funds. A detailed look at the individual line items can occur either in a future meeting or in a side meeting. If you wanted to schedule a special meeting, certainly that detail is available, and we're available to discuss it. Today, we didn't want to get bogged down in that detail. We wanted to give you an overall picture so you could make a determination about how quickly you wanted to proceed through the rest of the budget process. But that's a good observation.
And you can see my concern with stormwater fee, 300,000, other. So that just kind of like, what, But anyway, go ahead. You're good.
Sure thing. The next fund that I have is the water fund. Again, I saved this for later in the presentation so we could really talk about the uncertainty there and the different outlying issues there. You'll see that water sales are projected flat at $19,312,000. So that's the same as the fiscal year 14 budget. It's unclear at this time how the drought and the recent rains are going to impact that revenue budget. And so we're proposing it flat until we have more information on how we're going to proceed. And so there's just that uncertainty there, and we're watching it closely. We wanted to disclose to you all that we recommend that we continue to watch it closely.
And of course, Morgan, some of it also involves council's decisions on how we're going to proceed with either fees or as far as the drought level stages. So all that has to play into our forecast, so we need to have a better understanding of what we're going to be there first before we actually forecast what we feel may be a number that's more legitimate.
Yes, sir.
Just want to point that out.
And we do have a schedule for the first meeting in July, do we not?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we do have some flexibility before the budget is adopted to implement. If there are any changes that will be recommended in the near future, we can amend the budget and get those in there very quickly.
Was there a rough estimate? I thought I'd heard close to $1 million in losses on year-to-date in the water department and the water sales.
I heard two.
I'm sorry, I don't have that detail right in front of me.
1.7, somewhere
Yeah,
around there.
1.7.
Yeah.
I can get you that
We were
information.
down.
Well, that affects this slide tremendously.
Real, yeah.
Budget versus actual? Budget versus actual.
Well, in Fund 260 right now, year-to-date expenditures with encumbrances, we're at a negative $2.4 million, but that doesn't account for the summer months, which hopefully will sell more water. That's where we usually tend to make that up. So hopefully we can sell some water within the next few months, and if council decides to implement new rates, that would help as well. So maybe a combination of those two things would help us reduce that deficit.
So then this would be a projection. You're projecting.
Pardon me?
This would be a projection, including summer months?
This up here?
Yes.
Yes. That would be a projection based on flat, no revenue change, no rate change, nothing. And so we hope to implement some of those other ideas before we actually confirm this new budget.
Actually, to make it clear, we're not going to hit that revenue amount this year unless
That's right.
we start selling water.
That's right. That's why I said normally we make up for that deficit at the beginning of the year during the summer months because we're able to sell water and people use more water. So if we're not able to do that, and in combination with hopefully maybe some rate changes, I think that we could make up for some of it, maybe not all of it, but hopefully help the water fund out a little bit. So.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is your projection with us keeping the level 2 on, the once weekly watering, or does that even come into play?
This projection up here is just flat.
Strictly
flat from last year.
Okay.
We don't want to assume any changes until we have a little bit more information.
And if we keep level 2 on, we'll have to raise the rates significantly to generate this kind of
That's right.
revenue.
Yeah, that was my point. Okay.
So you'll see also in other of a proposed budget of $3,908,000, which is an increase of $139,000 from last year to this year. That increase is primarily due to delinquent collections proposed to be up. We're seeing a year-to-date trend that people are paying their bills. And so we're proposing in fiscal year 15 that budget be up about $180,000. So other items in here include that, but the delinquent is the biggest change from last year to this year. Then in water fund expenditures, you'll see that that expenses are proposed at the $23,220,000. So this fund exactly balances. You'll see a major decrease in operations from last year to this year of $716,000. That is due to debt service changed from the fiscal year 14 budget to the fiscal year 15 budget by that amount. And so that allowed the water fund to increase the capital investment by $500,000. So that fund is proposed to balance, but there are these outlying issues that we hope to resolve before this budget is adopted to get all those things included in the budget, so no amendments are necessary. And the final fund I'm going to review is the general fund. You'll see taxes are proposed at $49,584,000. That's about a $2.3 million increase from last year's original budget to this year's proposed budget. That includes a growth factor for sales tax at about 8% more than fiscal year 14 budget. That's a number that we've talked at length about that we feel comfortable is achievable. We may exceed that, however, we're uncomfortable with projecting higher than that 8% growth factor. Also, property tax estimates. Generally, at this time of year, our property tax estimates are pretty meager, skinny, lean. Conservative. And so we did have some growth in the certified estimates this year. And so we have about a 4.8% growth factor applied to property tax at this time. However, we won't know the final estimate until certified appraisals come in around July 25th. And so it's a waiting game on that. We've certainly heard in the community and from the appraisal district that there will be considerable growth there, but we will be conservative until those final certified estimates come in.
Mayor, specifically, we've heard reports that residential values are up 14% and commercial 28%. This revenue projection includes a 4.7%, is that right?
4.8%.
4.8% increase in those values. So you can see that the conflict we're faced with as we hear out in the public that the values are up significantly, and that the values we received in our preliminary estimate are significantly less than that. So we have high hopes for that final valuation when it comes in.
I hope we're able to adjust this after July 25 upwards.
Yes, sir, I hope so as well.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Okay, so the 2.3 million is the 8% projected for sales tax increase, but only 4.7 for our regular tax levy.
Property tax, yes, sir.
Okay.
And also included in taxes is delinquent taxes, penalties, and that is up slightly. But the majority of this 2.3 million is related to those two items you mentioned, yes, sir.
And it is the full 8% that you're calculating in there? For sales tax, yeah.
But that's not.
Yes, if I'm understanding you correctly.
It's 8%.
8% for sales.
We've, and again, that's another conservative number, although we've seen double-digit growth in sales tax revenues. In planning for the future, and as far as our budget, we want to make sure that we're also responsible and conservative in this estimates. We just don't know exactly what next year has in store for us, but I think 8% is a comfortable number.
Okay.
And certainly trepidation is the word of the day, that when we get into double-digit growth, 12 to 18 months out, I start to get nervous. And so I just want to be sure that this is a budget that we can live with, that we are achievable, and that we're not outrunning our headlights on this thing.
Yes.
John, do you have something?
Morgan or Michael, real quick, on the property values that you talk about, both the residential and commercial, is that across the board? I mean, everybody in Tom Green County, everybody in the city, is that?
Average.
What do you think?
Do you know that answer, Morgan?
I'm sorry.
If you know the answer, go ahead and give it.
According to what I've heard, that's for the county.
County?
Yes.
County only?
Well, we're in the
Yeah,
county.
we're
Across
part
the
of the
whole
county.
county.
Oh, we are?
We're part of the county.
Yeah, it's an average, and it is
Right.
very,
Right,
it is very
right. And so,
conservative.
so what I heard was that property values were up like $1 billion, but that includes the entire county, not just San Angelo, so.
Right.
I live in Arion County, so.
How much?
Went from 3.8
Kidding.
to 4.8, I believe. Billion.
Billion.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
But again, that's the entire county.
Not the city.
Tom Green County, not just the city of San Angelo, so. That's why we just felt comfortable being more conservative with the 4.8 until we get more definite numbers from the appraisal district.
Well, the
because-
4.8 is from the appraisal district.
That's right. That's the
their
initial.
number on a preliminary basis.
I guess my question is, are my property taxes going to go up?
The tax rate is in your hands. The values are in the hands of the appraisal district.
Yikes.
Okay. Probably.
And as you know, Johnny, being a trustee,
Trepidation.
all of this is revolving around the school district and what the state's pushing for property values to be so that they can pull the money in.
In fact, that is one of the words we've heard unofficially, is that pressure from the state to recognize the increase in values is helping to fuel those increases in values.
Right. So when your citizens call to complain, tell them call the trustees, not the city.
At 6 a.m.?
At 6:10?
Yeah.
For other revenue in the general fund, certainly other revenue is substantial. We're proposing it at $13,855,000. That includes a variety of items, from franchise taxes to the new PEG fees, municipal court fines, permits and inspections. Really, any other fee that's not in some specific fund is included in this other, and we do have that breakdown of that detail. It is proposed up at $261,000 more than last year's original budget, and that's the majority of that is franchise taxes. Television franchises up $200,000 alone, and so certainly some items are up and some are down, but the majority of that increase you'll find is in the franchise tax estimates. Moving on to general fund expenditure, I have some more detail here. Personnel, we adopted the original budget in fiscal year 14 with personnel at $43,957,000. The proposed fiscal year 15 budget is down substantially, $43,350,000, and I think you'll see that's from across the fund. Long-term employees leaving and filling those jobs with lower levels or having those jobs vacant. $269,000 of that decrease was in police alone, and so you'll see that there was some decrease in personnel. Of course, this includes no raises at this time or changes in benefits at this time, which we'll have some more detail on that shortly. Also, operations is proposed at $14,922,000. So this is all items that are not personnel and not capital. The majority of that is, my apologies, I lost my place. The service is lacking adequate funding, and so we had some increases there that were necessary, that were mandatory, and so that's been added to our operations budget and our proposed budget.
Just for clarity, we have a department called operations. This is not that. This is dividing expenditures in a different methodology. This is not operations. This is not Shane Kelton operations, although some of his expenses are contained in there.
This is
Good
everybody.
point, thank
This
you.
is everybody lumped together.
We often call this O&M, operations and maintenance. So the finance department's operations and maintenance,
Well,
all
it's
of-
non-personnel expenses across all those departments in the general fund.
Correct. And the last category we have here for general fund expenditures are capital, proposed at $3,642,000. That's a $400,000 increase from last year to this year. The majority of that, $250,000 of that, of course, is the PEG fee, that has to be used for capital for public information. So that's the biggest part of that. And then another $60,000 in traffic operations. We had a change in the methodology of how we do insurance claims when folks crash into our traffic lights and signal controls, and so you'll see an increase in insurance proceeds of $60,000 and an increase in that capital expense of $60,000, and so that's the majority of where you'll find that capital increase. So this is a really good position to be in this early in the process. That revenues in excess of expenditures are $1,524,000. I have an asterisk there because that leads us to our next slide, where we talk about marrying those council priorities with implementation in this year's budget. And unless there are any questions, I'll move on to that portion. These are major issues that we're aware of and that we're aware are council priorities that are not yet in this draft budget that's before you today, this summary that's before you today. For example, in the water fund, I believe Mr. Dixon spoke at the retreat that there would be a $3 million increase necessary for operating expenses, capital needs, depending on what kind of PACE is implemented.
Now, that's an important thing. It's hard to see, but there's a comma after operating. That means he said $3 million to cover his operating budget. And then the capital need to address leaky mains, that kind of thing, the need would be based on how quickly we wanted to execute those improvements. And so I think what we're saying here is that still needs work, and we need to discuss those items.
The next item, you'll see there is a similar issue in streets, that there's $7.5 million needed, and then also, comma, an additional capital need depending on PACE. The third item there is employee salaries. This is still pending salary survey, by what methodology we're going to implement salary increases. That all is to be determined. But for a working figure to know for today, we estimated $1,862,000, and the value of that is a 5% raise across all funds, including benefits. Now, that does include police civil service, since we are going through the meet and confer process, which is that next item there. The amount on that is to be determined. Of that $1.8 million, about $250,000 of that is for the water fund, will be an increased expense for the water fund, and about $1,366,000 of that is general fund and general fund dependent funds.
Morgan, does that 1.3 you're talking about include all salaries, including meet and confer at a 5%?
No, sir, I've excluded police civil service.
All right, so when you say 1.3 million for the general fund, that's on top of whatever might come out of meet and confer.
Correct. That's just speaking to that third bullet point there. The fourth bullet point for meet and confer, that amount is to be determined. So that would be in addition to. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Morgan, I didn't understand the $250,000 for the water fund. Why it on this line? Why
the employee salaries, the total cost across the organization would be $1,862,000. But for us to speak budget and to know how to implement that for each of the different funds, of the $1,862,000, $250,000 would be in the water fund, $1.3 million would be in the general fund, and the remainder would be in other funds. And so the $1,862,000 would be spread across multiple operating funds.
The key there, Mr. Silvas, is that if your opinion is that water rates should support water expenses, she's telling you that you could anticipate an additional $250,000 worth of personnel expense in the water fund if you were to give a 5% raise across the board. She's wanting you to be aware that not all of that $1.8 million should come from the general fund, that some of it may need to come from other funding sources.
Mm-hmm.
And this, at this point, is a projection as far as the $1.8 million. One of the goals of the city council during the retreat was to get the city staff within 3 years, perhaps to a number that's closer to the market value. So this is actually an estimation at this point to keep us on track, to get that done within a 3-year period.
I have a few other major issues to speak to that are not yet in the budget. Police station, we have a placeholder amount of $5 million. That's what we had in the original debt plan. And so that certainly could change depending on what details are included in that project. But just as a figure to start working with, we've included that. Then services that are lacking adequate staff or expenses, divisions that have been tasked with items that have not been funded to carry out those services and those activities. And then the final major item is health insurance. We're hearing that we should propose a 12 to 14% increase. We're still sharpening our pencil on exactly what that would be a cost to the employer contribution, but $750,000 is a starting point figure that we're estimating would be an increase across all funds to contribute for that. And with that, that's really what we have to present for you today, our recommendation would be to possibly convene a work session so we can get into more detail as it's your pleasure and your opportunity to have more time outside of a regular council meeting perhaps. As discussed last meeting, July 15th, we had tentatively called that a work session, although that is a regular council day, so it would be difficult to tackle all the items that are needed. We might suggest that if we were going to call a special meeting just for budget work session, perhaps July 31st or July 29th might be good dates to gather if it's your pleasure. We would hope to have certified values by that time from the appraisal district, which would change general fund revenue estimates at that time.
I think we would also propose earlier dates. We don't want to wait to work these issues out until that late date. We would.
And perhaps it would be appropriate, I have the rest of the months here, that August 5th, we can continue council discussion, but we are required to take a record vote on the proposed tax rate at that time. And so August 5th is the first time you'll see a deadline related to the Truth in Taxation Code, which starts to get really tight with us meeting all those deadlines. So it is, that's to speak to Michael's point that it is better to meet earlier than later for those reasons, so we make sure we're compliant with all the like regulations.
We begin to lose flexibility in August. In June and July, we're largely our own masters as far as setting meeting times and when we meet and when we make decisions. But when we get into August, we begin having to comply with state law on passing budgets, passing tax rates, that kind of thing. So our feeling, could you move us back to July, please?
Yes,
That's
sir.
when we'd like to have the meetings, right?
It
We
would-
have a regular meeting scheduled for July 1st, and off Tuesday would be July 8th. We've talked about trying to make July 15th a very little regular business and mostly work session meeting. And so we're hoping to get the biggest piece of our work session time scheduled early in July. But certainly that time frame right after we get those certified values would be good, because we're hoping to have a bump and make some final decisions when we get that last piece of revenue.
So do you think we could do the work session on the 15th and get the council meeting and the work session done? Would that be appropriate time?
I won't be here on the 15th.
You will not? Then that leaves the 8th. We'll be here on the 8th. Council want to get together on the 8th?
Michael, when do those numbers come in again?
July.
Go ahead.
The state deadline for the appraisal district to provide us that data is July 25th. They are often working until midnight on July 25th to get us that information. And so I will hopefully get that information on the 25th, work on it over that weekend, and have data by the 28th. However, that's a pretty tight deadline. I don't know that I would have it ready for example, if we chose to meet July 29th, since July is a 5-week month, that might be an opportunity. I may not have those exact final figures by July 29th if there are any extra research that has to be done with those figures that arrive. So that last week of July might be an additional opportunity for a work session if we want to meet
Thursday.
perhaps
Thursday
the 31st. If we wanted to meet early in the month, July 8th, to really line out all of our to-do items, all of our things we want implemented, and then meet again on the 31st, perhaps to see how that balances against revenue that came in. That's opportunity as well.
Do we want to put this on the July 1 agenda to propose July 8 as a special work session? Or do you want to make a decision now? What's? I don't have a problem with July 8.
Does that mean there's no meeting on the 15th?
No.
Okay.
No, it'd be 3.
Okay.
We get to enjoy 3 Tuesdays that month.
That's one of the things we're uncertain of, is this mix with getting accustomed to additional work session type meetings. And,
Will you know more on the 1st of July what you're going to need? What you require of us? Why don't we make an agenda item on this on the 1st, and let's make a decision then based on good information.
Okay.
Is that all right with everybody?
Mayor?
Yes,
So, Alicia, are you going to be okay with that? I mean, as far as posting for the 8th?
July 8th, yes.
You'll be,
Okay.
I mean, but you can take a vote because it's
We
possible
can't hear you.
action.
Aisha.
We
Speaking
can't
to
hear you. Sorry. If you would like, since it's posted for possible action, you could go ahead and set the meeting today.
It's whatever council desires. Doesn't make any difference to me. I'm available on the 8th. If everyone else is, we can either set it today on the 8th, or we can wait till the 1st and get more information and set it then.
I'll need to check my calendar to see if I already have commitments at that time, or maybe we do an evening meeting.
We can wait till the first then.
Let's wait till the 1st. That way you'll know more information, you'll know more, and we'll know more as well. We'll make a decision then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That got it?
That's all we have. We wanted to make sure that we're aware of these looming deadlines, but those are in your background as well, so that's all I have for you this
And
morning.
primarily this was for discussion?
Yes, sir.
Do we need to accept what you've given us, or is it just discussion?
No, sir.
Okay.
We want more discussion. We want you to ask us. We don't want any unanswered questions from you. We want you to be comfortable. This was just an introduction.
Transparency.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Morgan.
Mayor, may I ask a
Comments?
question?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Just in general, when you talk about the budget process, can you tell us a little bit about what staff has gone through to this point?
Absolutely.
Or what is planned for staff, and how perhaps new ideas can come forth from work groups, and how we would ever see those?
Absolutely. I welcome the opportunity. In March, budget staff began by proposing the budget calendar, reviewing new legislation, making sure that we could draft a calendar that was in compliance with the new legislation and still fit in our process with ample time for council discussion. In April, budget staff hosted budget kickoff, where we went over key economic data for directors and managers, so that as they're proposing revenue and expense estimates, they're aware of those items. We also offered multiple training opportunities for new staff and for new information going on in the budget process for revenue estimates, expense estimates, performance measures, which of course are key. Then also in April, we compiled revenue estimates, preliminary estimates for across all funds for everything from water sales to property tax to municipal court fines. All of those items were compiled by each division manager. Also in April, budget staff worked with the Human Resources Division to draft the compensation plan, just to get updated current data of current staffing levels and vacancies, all recorded at that time. Then in May, we moved into preparing the expense budget, and so that is a 2-week process where budget staff provides a budget manual to each division, email and hard copy, for the divisions to begin estimating what they can budget with their set target, and then to identify if there are any extraneous needs they need in addition to that target, and they identify that in a separate request form. And also to gather their performance measures, their actual data over a 3-year period, in compliance with Mr. Valenzuela's implementation of identifying core functions and core performance measures for each of those divisions. Those items were due May 15th, the day before the Blitz. And so at that time, budget staff meets with each division manager individually, one-on-one, on-site. We physically take that information from them. It is a substantial amount of work and data. And so we spent May 14th and 15th out of the office with those folks, getting their information from them, from each of the division managers. Then we compile that into a master review document for the staff budget review to convene and start reviewing, and that occurred on June 9th. We did have that discussion June 3rd, just very briefly about our process, that what's worked for our organization is we propose revenues first, we propose expenses second, and then we start working with council directives and priorities after that. So we began council discussions June 3rd. We convened the staff budget review team June 9th. We adjourned that June 16th, where we not only reviewed each and every division manager and director's submissions, but also talked about council priorities, council goals, major overarching themes across each division, and compiled minutes for all of that, which will distribute today to each of the managers for any action items that are needed from that. And then that brings us to today that we have this budget discussion. So budget staff will continue to sharpen our pencil on revenue estimates, identify that all expenditures are budgeted at the appropriate level, and continue adding to the list of items that need to be that we need some direction from council on. And so that's brought us to today.
Is there any process that allows staff from one division or department to make suggestions on cost savings that have to do with another division or department in the way they do their business?
Yes, absolutely. The primary avenue for that is during budget committee. We identified several items that we're following up with, and I believe we'll continue to work that process throughout the year outside of budget preparation, but certainly any items that are on the forefront right now are being identified and vetted for the council's direction and approval.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Morgan? Public comment? Thank you, Morgan.
Thank y'all.
Let's take us into executive. Number F, executive closed session, executive session under the revision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the Section 551072 to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. It is 11:51. I'm taking us into executive. Be back by 1, and there won't be much left to do when we get back. 1:31. Let's call this meeting back to order. And we are up to item number 26, consideration and possible action on matters discussed in executive closed session if needed. We have discussed nothing in executive that needs, we didn't discuss anything, so there's nothing that we need to take action on or to talk about. Announcements, consideration of future agenda items. Start with you, Rodney.
I just want to make sure on the stage two, it says.
Yeah, you're on.
On the stage two, that we're going to bring that up at the next meeting. We'd already said that we were, and talk about the fees structure also.
Water conservation.
On the water.
I have nothing to add. Charlotte?
Well, I want to follow up what I had asked 2 meetings ago, counting the workshop, with reference to the Texas Water Fund, the Water Board Fund, that even though we don't have a specific project or dollar amount, the applications that we're interested has a June, I believe it was June 26th deadline. I was wondering if we had done anything in the last couple of weeks with reference to that.
Shane's not here right now. I believe, let me double check with him. But
Okay, I just don't want that deadline to pass up, and then we won't be available
I mean,
for any funds until 2016 or 17, and money could be gone by then.
Sure. No, I said Shane, I meant Ricky, and Ricky always stays on top of that, but I'll double check.
Okay.
Do you have anything done?
No, sir.
Ms. Grindstaff?
I think we should discuss the Water Advisory Board, and perhaps if there's any changes that need to be made to the bylaws, so that is a functioning group, which it seems to not be right now. Also, I'm not sure if this, I don't know that this requires an agenda item, but on the issue of the tenant assistance, y'all may remember a few years ago, there was really a big push in the cooperation of ASU to put together that mediation team. And I'm sorry that's lost, but I certainly understand the budget issue. I don't know if that's something that staff might be able to look outside of the city organization with a local nonprofit that might be able to fill that role as well. But as I said, you know, at the time, it was something that was very needed, so I hate to lose that.
Did you get that, boss?
Yes, sir, I sure did.
That's all.
I have nothing. I would like to say we had a workshop last week at Fort Chadbourne, and those people bent over backwards to accommodate us. They were very, very good to us. That is a beautiful location. So this is the plug for Fort Chadbourne. If you hadn't been to Fort Chadbourne to see what they've got there, you really ought to go because it's a wonderful place. Now, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is over.
Daniel,
Yes, ma'am.
you want to read the pink there?
And I'm